Big week ahead. We found out late last week that the president going to be meeting later this week in Alaska with Vladimir Putin. Tonya J. Powers, Fox News Radio, joining us on KCMO Talk Radio in Kansas City. Tonya, good morning. What do we know right now about this meeting scheduled for Friday?
Hey, good morning. Well, we know that it is set, Trump and Putin. At this point, it does not include Zelensky or Ukraine in general. That has also kind of caused some consternation among some of the European leaders. Matter of fact, there were coordinated statements from 7 European leaders as well as Zelensky. And basically it said that Kyiv can't be sidelined in any talks over ending Russia's invasion. The two parties now do not include the Ukrainians there on Friday. The president has also, President Trump has suggested that land swaps could be part of a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine has firmly rejected giving any of the Ukrainian land over to Russia, who, as we remember, invaded it. They won't do that without any security guarantees or arms for Ukraine, stuff like that. Now, the vice president did talk some about the the scheduled meeting, on Fox on Sunday morning features this weekend, and said that, he didn't think it was a good idea for Putin and Zelensky to meet before Trump meets with Putin on Friday. But he did say that he thinks that the three should sit down at some point and have such a meeting, that the White House is working to schedule it to see when they can get together and discuss a plan forward.
So is there a sense that Putin even taking this meeting means that he is holding a weak hand, so to speak, or is that an inaccurate interpretation of what the world is assessing right now as to why Putin would even agree to this?
That's a really good question, because at this point, up to now, he hasn't been directly, involved in these things. These have been the stuff we've seen so far. Even a few months ago with Secretary of State Rubio, he sat down with Russian, representatives. So it was not, at the highest level at that point either. So the fact that he is apparently going to be, part of this is significant. You're right about that. Zelensky has said that, he posted on social media over the weekend, and this is a quote. He said, "Russia is doing everything to prolong hostilities. It refuses to stop the killings despite announced deadlines and is trying to bargain for better positions on the ground for future strikes." It says that, goes on to say that Ukraine is ready to work as productively as possible with all partners for the sake of real peace. And this is the part that really kind of hits the crux of the whole thing. Matters concerning Ukraine must be decided with Ukraine's participation. As for Putin, he hasn't been to the U.S. since 2015 and hasn't met with Trump since 2019. So, it's significant that he is apparently going to be in Alaska for this meeting.
So with Zelensky, is there a belief that Trump should talk to him this week before he goes and meets with Putin? If Zelensky's not going to be there, do you think that is the very least that will end up happening? Or is this just going to be Trump doing his thing and going to meet with Putin and then, go from there?
It could go either way, honestly. There is an eternity of time between now and Friday. It sounds soon. But as we all know, the way that things move, especially with this administration, especially in these news cycles now, there is no telling what could happen in the next 24 hours, much less now before, Friday. He could, there could be a phone call. We might find out, after the fact that, there's a phone call between him and Zelensky. I would imagine at some point the Ukrainians would probably get, in touch with the U.S. folks and be like, hey, this is what we insist on this, or this is what we really want, or, hey, invite us to the table at the very least. So that is possible that could be happening, and we find out about it, afterwards. There are still a lot of, weapons that are being bought from America by European countries, and, NATO allies that are, to supply more weapons to Ukraine, especially those Patriot air defense systems, the missiles, the ammunition, all of those are made by the U.S. So these countries are having to, buy them from the U.S. in order to, give them to Ukraine to help bolster their position. And like I said, the European leaders have already stressed that Ukraine needs to be part of any talks for its own peace deal anyway.
Tonya J. Powers, Fox News Radio here as the president gets set to meet with President Putin coming up on Friday in Alaska. Do we have any idea yet, Tonya, how exactly Alaska, from a security perspective, is preparing for any of this? I mean, this has got to be the biggest thing that happened in Alaska since I don't know when, maybe ever, since it became a state. So do you have any idea yet on what that side of this equation and this meeting looks like?
That is one of the things I'm hoping to find out in the next couple of days. I know that our White House correspondent, Jared Halpern, has been on this from the beginning and knows all of the details. I don't know if they have released, kind of the inner workings of the schedule yet of exactly how this is going to go. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in that as well. Like, no truth to the rumor that Sarah Palin's having them over to her house.
Oh, gosh. Well, we'll be following this week. It's going to be a very interesting week. See how it develops. Tonya J. Powers, Fox News Radio here on KCMO. Last thing, Tonya, what do you mentioned that the European leaders want to make sure that this is something that they have at least a little bit of input in. What do you expect to hear from them this week ahead of the meeting?
Well, like I said, they've already put out the first statement about, the fact that they really wanted to make sure that Ukraine was not, kind of, bowled over with this. It was signed. The statement was signed by the president of the EU, the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Finland, and the UK. And it said that there needed to be not only a just and lasting peace for Kyiv, that was one of the quotes, but a robust and credible security guarantee. It said Ukraine has the freedom of choice over its own destiny, and I think that's one of the things that somehow kind of from time to time gets lost in all of this when we hear about talks between Russia and the U.S. over what to do about Ukraine. Ukraine is a sovereign nation; they get to decide their own destiny, which is one of the things that these European countries are pointing out in the plainest terms possible.
Gotcha. Well, Tonya, thank you for being here on KCMO. We'll be in touch as the week goes along. Appreciate the time. There you go. Tonya J. Powers. Great to have her on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. That is one worth watching. Zelensky, though, he's got to understand that while, yes, they're a sovereign nation and they get to decide their own future in terms of whether or not there is some deal with Russia, they are so reliant on us that, we have to help lead the conversation. I'm sorry. That's totally appropriate. And no one's been able to figure out what the off-ramp is here for anybody, right? And I understand. Like, Zelensky has every right to feel the way he does. He's trying to defend his country from what has been an invasion. But at the same time, sometimes actually having that outside voice to say, let's cut a deal. Let's save lives. Let's help everybody out here can be very beneficial for all involved.